Good evening to you all. I am very, very happy to do this for the launch. I wasn't going to, but an idea came to me and I felt, believe me, I felt ashamed of myself. I am proud to say that my book is being launched here in Jerusalem, in Palestine. So much better, frankly, much better than having my book only launched in, of all places, Washington. Yes, I thank IPS in Washington and in Palestine and in Lebanon. But it is special, something very special to me, that I am talking now about the launch of this book in Jerusalem. I'm very grateful to the IPS branch in Ramallah for printing the book and for doing the launching. I have lived outside of Palestine for some 60 years, but I am a Palestinian through and through. Believe me, I remain committed to my country, and I am, by the way, a Jerusalemite. I was born and raised in Wad al-Jawz in Jerusalem. I was taught at the Kuttab when I was 3 years old. I was sent to Sitti Sheikha Bakriya, and she taught me the Quran, and she taught me some Arabic, believe it or not. And then I was taught at the Dar al-Aitam al-Islamiyya, at the House for Orphans, to put it briefly. I was taught there. And then I was taught in Hebron, where I spent 5 years at the Al-Alaiya School for the Blind, Al-Madrasa Al-Alaiya lil-Makfufin. And then we moved to Lida, and I stayed in Lida until 48. I went to a Ramle High School for 2 years, and then I went to Yafa, Al-Amiriya School, and this is where I matriculated. It is possible that I am the first and last blind student to have graduated, to have matriculated from under the British mandate. I don't know, it is possible, but so what? People ask me the silly question, why did you write this book? And they ask me another equally silly question, who is your audience? Really, I wouldn't write a book because I am thinking of a special community to read this book or that book. I write because I want to write, because there is something inside me pressing upward and forward to come out. I lived, now I'm not going to say my life is unique. No, parts of it may be a little bit, aspects of it may be unique, but really nothing, there isn't much that is special about my life, except this. This is special not because of my life, but it is special because it is special to all of us. This book deals with the period of my life from 1932 to 1948. That is to say, from the time I was a child until I became a boy, just about to on the threshold, shall we say, of manhood. Now, it is established, and I think it is a fact that doesn't even deserve discussion because it's so clear that children, whether they are in America or in Europe or in Palestine or in India, they are children. And their experiences are pretty similar, believe me. Sometimes they are even identical. A child is so close to the root of life, so close to the root of life, that whether he is here or there or anywhere, he is still a child. So all children, in other words, all children have similar experiences. And so my book is for all people to read about children, because I am writing about my childhood and boyhood. So this is my audience. Anywhere, anybody who is interested in the life of a child may find something worthwhile in this book. Where the growth of the child, how the children play, how the children are educated, how the children feel, anything, they are similar, and that's why the book is there. Now, there is something else about this book which has some sort of universality, and that is the blindness of this child we're talking about. I lost my sight when I was a child, when I was an infant. Indeed, my mom says I was 9 months old when I lost my sight. Okay, and so I was taught, I was raised, and I was taught, and I grew up as a blind child. Now, blindness, again, is a phenomenon which is not as big as the phenomenon of childhood, but it is big enough, pretty universal. How a blind child is taught, how a blind child is looked at by his family, by his friends, is an experience, shall we say, an experience everywhere. There isn't a country which doesn't have blind children and blind people. In America, there are more than 7 million blind people, by the way, but I don't want to tell you. I have a very good story, but I won't tell it now about this. 7 million people, anyway. And so I do talk in this book about my blindness and about how I was looked at as a blind person, how my parents taught me, how they did their best to ensure some sort of future for me, the mistakes they made, which everybody does, and the correct things they made, which everybody does, I hope, too. I was treated like every blind person, I bet you, as a strange thing, as a strange phenomenon. Here is this blind child. Why is he blind? I don't know, maybe God made him blind. Why did God make him blind? Well, maybe it's a curse laid on the blind. Is it a curse, really? Or maybe it isn't. Maybe it is a blessing. I mean, you know, if you go to Homer and read about Demodocus in the Odyssey, Demodocus was blessed. He was blind, but he was blessed with a very sweet voice and with a genius for singing poetry. But also, so he was blessed here. But also, you could be blind because God cursed you for some reason. And I found, believe me, I had both. Some people would tell me, when I was a child, remember, they would tell me, God cursed you, and that's why you are blind. And thank God you are, because if you were not, God knows what you would do. But some other people would say, God must have blessed him, and that's why he is able to do this and do that good thing and great thing or whatever. So blindness is important in this book, and I think the blind deserve to be treated objectively everywhere, and sometimes they are, sometimes they are not. So when ست الشيخة بكرية in الكتاب treated me just like the rest of the children. Believe me, she was very, very, very gifted instinctively, though. She was not educated. She knew very little, but except that she had the natural intelligence, and so she treated me very nicely. At the علائية School for the Blind in Hebron, we were taught pretty similarly to the sighted children, pretty close, but not completely close. And then when I graduated from that school, I had a little bit of a difficulty getting admitted into public school, right, with the sighted students, but I got in after some fight, thanks to the stubbornness of my dad or my father, who insisted, and they let him in. Get him in, they said, provided that he does well. If he doesn't do well after 3 months, kick him out, right? We agreed. And I was in it until the end, until I matriculated in 1948. Well, okay. Now, I can't talk too long. I don't want to take too much time, but there are a couple of more points I want to talk about quickly. I hope quickly. One is we lived during the 30s, and I began to hear of something that was annoying, and that is our country was in danger. I could hear people say, the adult people, my dad and the neighbors, that these Jews are coming to take our country. And I didn't, of course, I wouldn't, most of the time I wouldn't believe it. I would say, no, my father is big and strong, and my neighbor is big and strong, and we would beat them anyway. And as I grew older, things began to sound a little bit differently. That is to say, these newcomers, these strangers, are not as weak or as simple as you would think. So I began to feel apprehensive. And this apprehension is very important. It kept really nagging all through that period from 1932, that is, to 1948. So this state of apprehension was there. And then the last point, that's what happened finally. This apprehension became stronger and stronger and stronger until it was transformed into a reality, the reality of what happened in 1948. I was living in Lida, and Lida was conquered like other cities, and well, the atrocities are there. Read chapter 8 if you like in the book, and you will hear my voice the blind voice, you will hear it. You are welcome to think what you like of it. It was awful. As far as I am concerned, it was awful, and it remains awful. It remains awful, and maybe this is one other major reason for wanting to write this book. What the Israelis or the Jews or what they did is unforgivable and unforgettable. What they did, though, now that I am an adult and I can think, not as a child, but as someone else, what they have done is understandable. Unfortunately, it was a problem of rabies, frankly. Rabies. By which I mean this, that Europe, the West, treated the Jews very, very uglily from the beginning. That is to say, from the beginning of, almost the beginning of Christianity. This business of anti-Semitism has been with us for hundreds upon hundreds of years. And anti-Semitism finally culminated in the Holocaust. Yes, the Holocaust. And the Jews suffered, and suffered terribly, and suffered completely, unjustly. The problem is that they were bitten, shall we say, they were bitten by the Western dogs. They were bitten, and they contracted the disease of persecution. They were persecuted, and then they came to my country and they persecuted us. That is to say, they got the Western disease of this kind of cruelty, this kind of injustice. This is why I wrote my book. And I wrote this book not only for America, not only for Palestine, but for everybody to remember that you cannot treat people, no matter who they are or where they are, the way the Jews were treated and the way the Jews have treated us. It is a shame on humanity, and frankly, it's a shame on Western civilization. Thank you very much.